Burst through the twisting rapids of the Colorado River in your one-man boat with only oar power. This is the Grand Canyon, Arizona, nature's pride. Young lads on their big summer adventure out Lake Mead near Las Vegas, Nevada. From the very floor of the Grand Canyon, we'll look up hundreds of feet to sheer natural beauty. For 19 days all around us, we'll see unforgettable sights not observable except from river level. We'll ride the crest of water and occasionally shoot out above it in 8-foot plywood prams with 5 teenage boys. Guest cameraman guide, their adult expedition leader, Walter Prevost of Seattle, Washington, a skilled veteran of such boat voyages. These self-styled river rats are members of the West Seattle Christian Church's Skookumchuck Adventure Group, moving south and then west, navigating the surging, rushing currents of the great river that swirl, turn, and churn, require experience. We'll join Walt Prevost and the oarsmen of Skookumchuck to challenge the Colorado River waterway to canyon wonders right after this message. Walt Prevost, the Colorado River reminds us of an angry, bucking rodeo bronco trying to throw the boat and the rider off its back.
Well, that's a good way to describe it, George. And that's also the reason we require at least a full year of local boating before we allow a boy to participate in a trip like this.
How long have you personally been running these western U.S. rivers?
About 19 years now, George.
All right, we'll put ourselves in your capable hands, so let's go.
As we put in at Lee's Ferry, Arizona, we are filled with excitement. We have been planning this trip for several years. Now we are finally getting underway. Ahead of us lie 312 miles and 19 days of some of the world's most spectacular scenery and exciting rapids. And we are doing it in the smallest wooden boats ever to run the Grand Canyon. Immediately after leaving Lee's Ferry, and while still in sight of our put-in, we run Paria Riffle. The boy said, "If that's a riffle, I'd hate to see a rapids." For the first few miles after leaving Lee's Ferry, the river gradually cuts down into a deeper and deeper canyon. At mile 4.5, we pass under Navajo Bridge, where the old Highway 89 crosses the river. This is the very first rapid on the Grand Canyon section of the Colorado River. It is Badger Creek Rapid at mile 7.8. As is our policy, when we couldn't see a passable route through to smooth water, we stopped to look it over. Badger looked safe enough, so we decided to run it and take some pictures.
That you out there running it, Walt?
Yes, it is. Len suffered the first accident of the trip. He got into the wrong channel going into Badger and tipped over. He didn't lose anything, but he did get his gear wet. Here is his sleeping bag drying out.
How long does that take to dry out?
Only about a half an hour. Len had to put his decks back together. We carried quite a bit of repair stuff: plywood, nuts and bolts, screws, glue, etc. After this repair, Len made the rest of the trip okay. We camped the first night where we rescued Len and his boat at mile 8.4, just about where we had planned to camp. Dave is taking a picture of one of the landmarks on the Colorado River, 10 Mile Rock. That rock apparently fell off the cliff into the river just like you might throw a knife and stick it in the ground. It's difficult here to tell which way the river goes, but our maps show us that it turns to the left. This trip was this year's expedition for Skookumchuck River Rats, sponsored by West Seattle Christian Church. Let's introduce the boys. Howie Blakeney, age 19. Len Walton, age 17. Dave Powell, age 17. Denny Madsen, age 22, and Rick Starkey, age 18. As we continue deeper and deeper into the earth, I can't help but think what a tremendous example this is of God's power. A God who can create the Grand Canyon must be powerful. George, this must really have made a splash when it hit the river.
Well, I'd like to see that boulder crash down.
While we were on the river, a number of raft parties passed us. This one is operated by Tour West and was at Lee's Ferry when we put in. The passengers on the rafts are always interested to see us in our little boats and are concerned whether we'll make it safely. We are in the section called Marble Canyon, so called because of the bands which appear from time to time in the rock, which resembles marble. Vasey's Paradise. A spring comes gushing out of the canyon wall and joins the river below. When the river is muddy, this is a good place to replenish fresh water supplies. However, on our trip, the river ran clear, so we drank the river. Red Wall Cavern, where the river has carved a cave. This is one of my favorite places. I like the canyon most when it is very narrow like this. Nanquip Ruins, about 1,000 feet above the river. By climbing up here, we were able to enjoy some shade during a very hot afternoon. These little rooms were used for living and for storing food.
Many years ago, you mean?
That's right. We camped on the sandbar below within sight of the ruins. In spite of the small size of our boats, we are able to carry stoves and not have to depend on the dwindling supply of driftwood.
How many stoves did you have, Walt?
We carried 2 of them with us. For the first 50 miles, we were in Marble Canyon. Now we have entered Grand Canyon National Park. Signs of the times, a turbine-powered helicopter. This one was used to take out a raft party which made a 3-day trip from Lee's Ferry to the Little Colorado River. People, rafts, everything was taken out by air. Because it was a hot day, between 105 and 110 degrees, the helicopter had to make a number of trips. For about 5 miles, we are in sight of Desert View Tower on the south rim. That little dot on the rim is the tower. A very important part of our trip is the time we spend on spiritual things. We feel it is very appropriate to spend some time with God while we are in such a place as the Grand Canyon. First thing in the morning, each of us spends some time in private Bible reading and prayer, as Howie is doing here. Each evening after dinner, we spend some time studying God's Word. We studied Romans, a chapter each evening. Another raft, this one operated by Arta. Len in Neville's Rapid at mile 75. This rapid is of medium difficulty. We looked it over and decided we could run it in 2 groups and take some pictures. After we had suffered a tip over in the very first rapid, we were just a little spooky. We found that when one boat was over, it took the rest of the party to rescue the one. This is Howie in the same rapid.
I can see why you have those decks and splash guards.
Yes, without them the boat would be full of water in a hurry. In the Grand Canyon there are 2 rapids, Sockdolager and Grapevine, which are so bad that we could not possibly run them, and which are in a rock-walled canyon with walls so steep that we could not line by or portage around them. The National Park Service gave us our permit to boat the Grand Canyon with the understanding that we would piggyback past these 2 rapids. We made arrangements to meet Mexican Hat Expedition, a commercial raft party, at the foot of Neville's Rapid. Here we are loading our boats onto the raft. The famous suspension bridge at the foot of the Bright Angel and Kaibab trails. Here we will camp for the 7th night of our trip and will visit Phantom Ranch.
We're with Walt Prevost and an expedition of small boatmen on the turbulent Colorado River. Ahead are Granite Falls, Narrow Canyon, Crystal Rapid, and Bedrock Rapid. Let's return.
We put in again at Phantom Ranch on the morning of our 8th day. We are at mile 87.5 and have spent 7 days of our 19-day trip. At Phantom Ranch, we picked up a supply of food which had been brought down on the mule train from the South Rim.
Well, Walt, did you arrange for that food ahead of time?
Yes. While driving our cars from Lee's Ferry to Lake Mead, we left some food at the head of the Kaibab Trail to be brought down to us. Our camp at the foot of Granite Falls, we found out later that this was our hottest day. The temperature recorded at Phantom Ranch that day was 124 degrees. While we stopped to look over Crystal Rapids, several rafts caught up with us. Here is one of them. These rafts are built with surplus bridge pontoons and can run anything the river has to offer. This raft is going through the worst part of this rapid. In contrast, this is the way we get by Crystal Rapid. Howie is lining his boat. The boat floats through but is controlled with the line. Lining also involves wading in the water to manhandle the boat through places where there is not quite enough water. After lining the upper part of Crystal, we ran the lower part. Dave took a wave which broke off his stern splash guard into his lap. So he had some repair work to do. One of the characteristics of the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon is the presence of these strong whirlpools and eddies at the foot of rapids, and particularly at the foot of some small riffles. Watch Len here as he gets caught in one of these. Fortunately, these whirls do not remain in place. They move down the river and gradually disappear. Here we see the full depth of the canyon. The highest level we can see here is about a mile above us. At mile 121.5, we suffered our third and last tip over. A small, unnamed rapid tipped me end over end. So I had the usual deck repair job to do. We have named this rapid Walt's Riffle. This is called Narrow Canyon because it is the narrowest place in the Grand Canyon section of the Colorado River.
About how many feet wide across there?
Oh, about 50 or 60. We have camped at the head of Bedrock Rapid. We're having some cornmeal muffins. magically become pancakes.
Yes, sir.
Both of our cooking groups are using the same stove because during one of our tip-overs we lost the tank out of one of the stoves. Early morning views from our bedrock camp. Bedrock Rapid is one of those we should be able to run, but the current moved so fast right up on the bedrock in the middle that we were afraid we wouldn't be able to move to the side fast enough, so we lined it. When we are able to line this way, where each one handles his own boat, we don't lose much time. We spent about 20 minutes on this one. Each member of the party has a copy of the set of maps. Denny is looking intently at his to check our location. Deer Creek Falls, one of the garden spots of the Grand Canyon. Every river party stops here. This is another good place to replenish water supplies. Anyone for a shower?
Walt, is that water cold?
Yes, it is on the chilly side, but it sure feels good on these 100-plus days. We hiked up above the falls for a look at the upper Deer Creek area. The creek is carving a gorge into the sandstone. Windy Camp, Camp 12. The wind blew here. We're washing dishes using Colorado River detergent, the silt. We are now entering a section of the canyon which is especially narrow. It extends for about 40 miles. I like it. I guess I'm partial to the narrower sections of canyon. Upset Rapid, one of the major rapids on the river. I do not know the exact source of the name, but I am sure it is descriptive of some early episode. A Sanderson Brothers raft is running the rapid. Again, we use discretion and decide to line our boats. Notice how the boat is floating free, but is restrained by the long line attached to the bow. This time we use 2 groups of 3 fellows each for lining. That hole is what we are trying to avoid. As we drifted through this very beautiful narrow canyon, we were looking for a campsite which our map showed and which we were told had a little spring. About 1.5 miles below Upset Rapid, we found the campsite, a truly beautiful place. The ledges were hard, but our air mattresses made for good sleeping. The ledges helped us arrange a convenient kitchen. Early morning in the canyon, the most beautiful time of day. Havasu Creek joins the Colorado through this narrow opening. Not many riverboats can make it through. Havasu Rapid had a relatively easy run down the left. Howie led the first 3 through while we took pictures. Camp 14 at mile 175.9. Vulcan's Anvil, a huge volcanic dike which boiled up through the river from below. This tells us that we are approaching the biggest and worst rapid on the river, Lava Falls. All other rapids in the Grand Canyon are rated in reference to Lava Falls. Without even looking at it, we knew we would line our portage. We found we could line Lava Falls. For safety, we worked together, 1 boat at a time, except that each took pictures of his own boat being lined. The other 5 are lining my boat. We had opened a channel in the lower section to make it a little easier on the boat bottoms. While we lined the boat, the river was going down so that the boat scraped more and more. It took us a little over 1.5 hours to line the 6 boats. In the background, you can see what we were trying to avoid.
Well, with that, I certainly wouldn't want to boat through that either.
The feet of two lava flows. They looked like the ends of dirty glaciers. The volcanic activity in this area occurred after the river and its canyon were here. It must have been a sight to see when the lava came over the side of the canyon and poured into the river. View from Camp 16 at the head of 217 Mile Rapid.
Walt, did your group do much swimming on this trip?
Amazing as it may sound, the swimming was not too good. The water was too cold. At Separation Canyon, which is at mile 240.5, we reached the head of Lake Mead. The canyon remained fairly narrow for another 40 miles. Camp 17 on Lake Mead at mile 245. Notice there is still a current. On this day, our 18th on the river, we rode all day, traveling over 40 miles. We had severe cases of tired backside, which we relieved by standing up from time to time. We knew that we had conquered the Grand Canyon and were glad to be nearing the takeout point. But we were also talking about when we would make another Grand Canyon trip.
Walt Prevost and his Skookumchuck River Rat expedition back from the stimulating Colorado River in the Grand Canyon state of Arizona. Why do they undertake challenges to nature like this? We'll learn after this message. Walt Prevost, how does the Colorado River compare in difficulty with others in the western U.S. for this kind of thing?
Well, George, among the whitewater boaters, the Grand Canyon is generally considered to be the granddaddy river of all whitewater streams.
Tell me, why do you do this?
Well, in the first place, it gives me a chance to go on river trips. In addition, we hope to give boys the thrill of high adventure, something they can really take some pride of accomplishment in, and while doing it, draw them closer to God.
Well, in your opinion, was there evidence of God's hand in this adventure you were on?
Yes, I believe so. In addition to the help during our preparations and making arrangements for the trip, we had perfect weather on the trip as well as clear, drinkable water all the way. An interesting point about the water is that when we went back to pick up a car at Lee's Ferry following the trip, we found that the river was muddy.
Thanks very much, Walt Prevost. Ride the tides or skim the clouds and roads in our photographer's cameo adventures. These are real personal caravans by people who have a flair for discovery. Destination the world. Departure point right here. You'll regret it if you miss it. Goodbye, travelers.